about 3 pages. I typed up about 3 pages, and we compared notes. And when we compared notes, we came up with about 26 things that were either unique to this book, they'd either never been done in a method book, or we wanted to present them in a slightly different way. And one of those big things are the supplemental resources. And what we find from teachers, there are a number of people who've started using the method book, and what we started hearing from teachers is my ensemble sounds better. My students are more musically literate. They're more rhythmically literate. They're more aurally literate. They understand key signatures. My clarinets are playing over the break center. There are all these things that we're hearing, and a lot of it is because of those supplemental resources. And it starts at the very, very beginning. So we have something that's kind of unique to the book, which is the first 23 pages of the conductor's edition. And those first 23 pages of the conductor's edition, we call Habits Beginner First Steps. And there'll be nowhere in the conductor's edition where you actually see this framework. But if you read those first 23 pages, you'll see this model play out. It's really important to understand that if you just handed the method book out and you started with number 1, that would not be the most effective way to use the method book. So that's why we're going to go over some of these things tonight. So literally the first day of school, after you've gone over policies and procedures and expectations, and maybe done an all about me assignment, you talk about your systems and processes, how you want them to come in the room and how you want them to exit the room, all those kind of things. We literally start with rhythm vocabulary. And we want rhythm vocabulary to be ahead of everything else at the very beginning. We want them to truly be rhythmically literate. And so we start with something that we call first day's rhythm charts. And so there are 3 things that are happening simultaneously at the very beginning in these first steps. You'll see first day's rhythm charts. You'll see first day's solfege. And so the 3 things that you'll see working in tandem are the first day's rhythm charts, which are in the method book. Then you'll see the supplemental rhythm charts, which are on habitsuniversal.com, which remediate the concept from the first day's rhythm chart in the book. And then the third thing are the first day's solfege. And we do simple diatonic solfege. And we literally start and we do it in the key of B flat. And I'll kind of talk you through that process in just a little bit. And then the next thing we do is we teach note names. And we do a little note card exercise that we do. And the reason for that is because we want students to not write the note names above their note heads. And yet we've all picked up student books before where we've seen that be the case. The next thing we do is air playing. And this is when we teach them the contact point. So air playing would be fingers like here or here. We might even have the flute players put their finger here, like imitating a head joint. And by the way, when you do this, you want to make sure it's low enough. It's right at the bottom of the teeth here, so they don't put it too high. That actually can cause some issues later. And then the next thing we have them do is small instrument work, which is like flutes on their head joint, clarinets on their mouthpiece and barrel, brass players on their mouthpieces. We also, during this time, when we do the air playing and the small instrument work, we teach the percussionists to do the rebound stroke. And we initially tell them that it's like bouncing a basketball. So if you had 4 quarter notes and you were doing that during this time, the percussionist would be doing the rebound stroke. Then we do first sounds and then something called 3-note songs. And I'll just tell you a couple of things. When we have them do the initial rhythm charts, it's just the rhythm chart by itself. Later in the book, it's a rhythm chart followed by rhythms and pitches. And that's where the real epiphany moment kind of happens. But initially, we want just the rhythm chart, just one line of the rhythm chart. And we actually have them at the beginning, just take their finger and follow along. And there's some steps that we go with that. By the way, this process of you do this, and then this is called habit stacking. There's actually a word for it. The idea of pointing to the notes as you're following with your eyes or you're tracing with your eyes, that's called pointing and calling. There's actually a scientific term for that as well. So let's talk about what this looks like at the very beginning in the conductor's edition. And if my technology works, this will open, and I'll show you what the conductor's edition looks like. So here are the first day's rhythm charts. And by the way, if your students get their method books like later during their rental period or whatever, I'll show you in just a little bit where you can go on habitsuniversal.com, click on resources and then rhythm charts. And the first day's rhythm charts are there for you to use. You can put them up on your board, you can photocopy them and put it in your binders for your students, things like that. So the first day's rhythm charts look like this. And then I'm going to just show you, kind of scroll down what happens here in the conductor's edition. Then we have the first day's solfege. And it's pretty basic here. And we always want to have a sounding pitch with that. And then we have the first days of instruction, and we have 10 sequences here. And the 10 sequences, we literally start with 10 quarter notes. And in our system, we would just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. use whatever counting system you're most passionate about. Doesn't matter whether it's Wanianda, Takadimi, Duta Data, fruits and vegetables, whatever you like using. Use your counting system because you're most passionate about it. But we literally start with 10 quarter notes. And then the next thing we'll have them do is this. We'll explain this definition of the bar line divides the staff into measures and help us organize time. And then when counting, bar lines indicate where to start over with the number 1. And then we ask them to do 2 other things. The next thing we do is we ask them, how do we make this a full measure? So then they add beats 3 and 4 to this measure. It looks like this. And then the next thing we do is we manipulate the quarter notes and put bar lines in various places. Now, this time, we're not teaching them time signatures. We just want them to know that whatever cap comes after the bar line is 1. And so we'll ask a student to go up and say, ask the student, hey, put the 1s where they go, and they'll put the 1s in. And then if you have another student, they may be willing to go in and say, hey, can you put the other numbers? They would put a 2 here and 2, 3 here and 2, 3, 4 here. So there's a process of how we teach these quarter notes, how we teach bar lines. And then literally, and we won't go through all this tonight, but literally there are 10 sequences that align with the first day's rhythm charts, the first day's solfege, and the supplemental rhythm charts on habitsuniversal.com. And I'll show you some other things as we go through this in terms of alignment. So these are the things that we ask students to do. Like I said, use whatever counting system you're most passionate about. We ask them to clap loudly, vocalize strongly, tap your foot. And when we ask them to tap the foot, we have them do a very strict down, up motion with the foot. This is so we can also monitor like releases as an example. So let's say you had a half note followed by a half rest. That foot would go down, up, down, up, down. Because if a note's followed by a rest, you release the note on the rest. So that's really, really important. We call it no floating feet. And then we have them track their music with their eyes. And like I said, for about the first week and a half, we have them follow it with their fingers as well. And then eventually we take that away, just have them track it with their eyes because they're going to have an instrument in their hand. And then rest or short and soft. So let's look at how this would play out. This is my colleague, Jeff. He's the co-writer of the book. This is a woodwind percussion class of Jeff's. This is not right off the bat. This is actually first day's letter Q. So it's several weeks in. And let's look at what they're doing. They're tapping their foot, and I'll just let you hear it.
1 and 2 and Q and go and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 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 and very good. All right, that's good.
So that'll give you an idea. And Jeff gets them on eighth notes pretty quickly. I have them stay on quarter notes until the percussionists get to the eighth notes. Another thing that Jeff and I do just slightly different is I ask all of them to tap their right foot, except the horn players who I want to tap their left foot because they should have the bell on the leg. So that'll give you an idea. That way, if they're all tapping the right foot, you can look along, take your eyes and look and make sure that they're doing that very strict down up motion with the foot. The next thing I want to tell you about in terms of supplemental resources on habitsuniversal.com, we have something called percussion grooves. And they're really just designed to kind of take the place of the metronome, and they're really just there to be fun. So we can't do this together because there would be a lag, but I'll show you, if we were doing this, I'll show you what this would look like. So measure 1 would be like this. Measure 1 would be 1, 2, 3, 4. Measure 3 would be 1, 2. 3, 4. Does that give you an idea? So I'll do this for you and show you how this would go. The first thing we do with students is we get their foot going, and we'll be doing this with the percussion group. These are just fun to use. Students love doing it. Okay, let's get those feet going. Here we go. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. 1, 2, ready, count. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you see how that works. And Mary and Reed, can you guys hear that okay? You hear that okay? Give me a thumbs up. Yep, good, awesome. So that's how we would do it in our system. But like I said, use whatever counting system you're most passionate about. Now, for the first day solfege, we literally start them on day 1, but we really just want them to sing does on day 1. And we ask them to use their beautiful children's voices. And we actually have a little system that we use. And the system is where we have them hum first, so that we do it in the key of B flat. So they'll go like And then we ask them to go to the syllable ma, which, by the way, we use as an inhale syllable later, but we'll go hum, then ma, ma, and then mo, mo, and then do, do. And then we ask them to use their beautiful children's voices, not forcing their voices at all. And we start in the key of B flat. And if you start early enough with students singing, they will sing. If you wait too long, they'll ask that proverbial question, why are we singing in band? And the truth is, we want them to be able to hear what they see and see what they hear. And all of us who've ever taught beginner brass players know the issue with students getting on the wrong partial, that one of the things that will help them in terms of getting on the right partial is to be able to see what they hear and hear what they see. So it's a sounding pitch, and we want them to match that pitch. After they finish those first days solfege, the next thing we do is we send them to habitsuniversal.com under the resources tab and do the supplemental solfege. Oh, that didn't know what was supposed to happen. Well, let's go back. All right, I think the technology is working now. So this is what it would look like. And literally the first time they do like number 4 here, they'll go do, re, fa. That's what they'll do the first time. And it's a teachable moment for them, you know, to sing do, re, and then audiate me, and then go up to fa and come down to me. So we use that as supplemental solfege. And you'll find in the book, there's some strategic songs that you really can use. And there's also some supplemental songs where it's written out for you on habitsuniversal.com, where you can use solfege, but it's not intended where you just do solfege all the way through the book, because obviously we start getting into half steps and we don't teach them at this point, you know, do, di, re, mi, fa, fi. So it's just the initial ability to match pitch, the initial ability to match in terms of intervals, understanding intervals, and hear what they see and see what they hear. The other thing that we have on habitsuniversal.com is something called 3-note songs. They come in around number 15 in the method book. And not only do we have them play the 3-note songs, there are 12 of them there, but we also have them sing solfege on the 3-note songs. And we find that when they just sing do, re, and mi, that they will be confident. They'll be confident in singing. And so you'll see in just a minute under the additional teacher tips where these 3-note songs go in terms of the sequence of instruction. The next thing we have them do in those first 23 pages, and keep in mind, we still haven't put instruments in their hands. Those first 23 pages in the conductor's edition between sequence 6 and 7, we have them do a note naming identification game, and we literally use note cards. And you have a blank side and a line side. We've been doing this for a long time. Now, Jeff actually has a set of teacher note cards as well that he uses. But we have the students make these. And maybe the first day, you just have them, you know, write the 8 notes that they have for their instrument. So you just have them write like B flat. And that's the first day activity. That might take, you know, 8 minutes or so. And you can just go through and check and make sure they've written them. That's all you do the first day. And then the next day you have them come in and put the 5 lines in 4 spaces. And that's all you do that day. So you kind of pace this out. But this is when we teach them that when they write B flat, when they flip the card over, it's flat B, because the flat comes before the note head. This is also when we teach them ledger lines. So you have like, you know, trumpets and clarinets have ledger lines below, flutes have ledger lines above, tubas have ledger lines below. So the whole idea being that we're going to, right near the beginning, before we put instruments in their hands, we're going to start teaching some of these concepts. And to be totally honest with you, after we do this and we have them do it alphabetically first, like, you know, in alphabetical order, and they get with their pairs, and then they jumble them up, you know, and they do it with their partner. The next thing we have them do is go to musictheory.net and use their devices, because you can set the parameters. You can go up a half step, down a half step, up a whole step, down a whole step. So this is the initial process. And like I said before, the reason we do this is we want them to not write their note names above their note heads. So we want to start in this process before we even put instruments in their hands, them understanding a certain range for their instrument. All right, the next thing that we do is the alphabet game, because we want them to start understanding that there's a musical alphabet, right? And it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G. The hard part for them sometimes is the understanding that it's G, F, E, D, C, B, A going the other direction. And so we have them do this exercise, and you would never go this fast with the students, but you go up and back down. So it sounds like this: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, G, F, E, D, C, B, A. B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, A, G, F, E, D, C, B. So you get the idea. You wouldn't go quite this fast with them, but it's a great exercise. And when they first get to the pentascales, they'll have an understanding of how this works, and they literally will do it. My experience has always been that students, as scales, for example, get more difficult, they do a lot better going up than they do coming down. So this helps with that. It helps just them understanding the musical alphabet. I was saying on Thursday, I asked a student one time, this was a high school student, I said, spell the F sharp scale for me. And she said, F sharp, A flat, B natural, C sharp. And, just brought the idea, and that she had a problem with the 7th scale degree, that, we have to account for every letter name. And so we want to just start planting these seeds. Now, we've gotten to the point where they have instruments in their hands, but before we put instruments in their hands, we have to do a couple of things. Number one, teach them which side of the case is up, right? And then we teach them how to open the case. And then we say, don't touch that. Don't touch that instrument yet. We have small instrument work for them. And as I said earlier, small instrument work is like flutes on their head joint, clarinets on the mouthpiece and barrel, trumpets on their mouthpiece, and all brass players on their mouthpieces. You'll see here too that we have the brass players buzz concert F and low concert B flat. We have horn players buzz 3 pitches, low, middle, and high. And so this is an initial process, and we want to use a sounding pitch for this. This is a video of my colleague Marie, some of her students. We just went in a practice room, and I want to publicly thank Marie for letting me use her students as guinea pigs. All the time she lets me come out and work with her students. So let's watch this video, and this is the small instrument work. Hey Brooke, can you match this A on your head joint closed? Okay, let's do it open and match the A. Okay, Caroline, we're going to see if you can match the C on your small instrument. Nice. Okay, Leah, let's see if you can match this F sharp on your small instrument. Nice. Chris, can you match this G sharp A flat on your small instrument? Okay, Tegan, can you match this concert F, your G, on your mouthpiece? Okay, using this pitch, can you play a low C, concert B flat? You're kind of fishing around, and that's okay. We're good with that right now.
Let's play the F sharp. We're going to do
But this can be a little painful when you get the whole section to do it.
Remember your angle. Teeth on top. Then I'm going to let go of the bottom. Corners in. Drop your chin. 1 and 2 and ready.
You gotta love that sound.
Leave your mouth.
All right, so you get the idea. So just a couple of things about those videos. I don't know if you noticed with Aaliyah, she had a little hesitation right when she played clarinet. And that hesitation was due that there wasn't quite enough mouthpiece in the mouth. So we actually have them go to their squeak point and then come back away from their squeak point. And after that video, I worked with her a little bit, and she got a little bit more mouthpiece in the mouth and got, just a beautiful sound. And Tegan, the trumpet player, his aperture was pulled a little bit too far apart, so he got a little bit airy sound. So I had him focus a little bit this way and a little bit this way to get a more resonant sound with his buzz, and it immediately made his sound open up a little bit. He also, he had grabbed his shank of his mouthpiece with his hand, and I asked him to use 3 fingers, which is what we teach in the book too, not to use too much pressure there. So there are all kinds of little things that you can do, those small instrument work. You can go along with the clarinets and grab the barrel and make sure the pressure is up towards the top teeth and make sure they're anchoring up towards the top teeth. So small instrument work is incredibly valuable. All right, so let's talk about 2 big things. So first of all, we have something new, and you might want to write this down. You might want to grab something to write this down. And it's the second thing, www.giamusic.com, Habits Beginner Media. We'll look at that in just a little bit, but that is huge because it's something brand new. You'll never see this in your conductor's edition. We just instituted it this year. And the reason is because before, students were having to go to a place where they're having to find the book, and then they were having to put their code in, they were having to put an email address in, and they were having to, it was just too many clicks for students. And so we eliminated all that. We also had some school districts, their Vimeo was being blocked, and we eliminated that too. We just took out all the things. And so basically students have to basically have 2 clicks. They have a click to get on the site, and they have a click to get to their instrument. And I will tell you that you can put this on your Google Classroom page or something where it's really easy for students to get to. But let's look now at habitsuniversal.com. And basically what we're doing is we're calling this the teacher resource page now, this website. Some of you have probably used this before. And let's do a little bit of looking here under a couple of things. So first of all, we've got videos here. We have the accompaniment tracks here, and then we have the resources tab. So let's look at the resources tab just for a minute and talk about some things. Here are the rhythm charts. And remember I told you earlier, if your students don't get their books until a little bit later and you want the first day's rhythm charts, because we literally want them to be done early, you can find them here. They're right here. Then we have these rhythm charts, there's 20 of them. They look something like this. So this would be the one that remediates quarter notes. And we do them left to right. We do them right to left. Sometimes we even do them top to bottom. But this is what the rhythm charts look like. So there are other things here too on habitsuniversal.com. There's the percussion grooves. Here are the 3-note songs that we talked about, the ones that have do, re, and mi, where we have them do solfege. And also these come after number 14 in the book. So you want to use that to remediate do, re, and mi. We have drones here. We like using the Yamaha Harmony Director or the Tonal Energy app. But if you don't have either and you want some drones, right here, we have drones for you. Now, this is the most, if you don't hear anything else in the webinar tonight, this is the most important thing that I can tell you. This is a really, really important tab. It's called Additional Teacher Tips for the book. And there's just so many things that we couldn't put in the Conductor's Edition. And so it's all here. And so, for instance, if you read this, I'll show you a couple of things. It says, let's do this one. Let's say, before exercise 19, ask the trombone players to go to the trombone clinic videos and watch the video titled Slurring. So that's an example. So everything that's here, what you want to do is take your Conductor's Edition, your big Conductor's Edition, and write in each of these additional teacher tips next to the exercise where it's there. Just as a reminder for you, and this will allow you to truly maximize instruction with the book. I told the story the other day, my good friend Marie, she's an amazing teacher, Marie Evans. When she first started using the book in year 1, I asked her, I said, what are your thoughts on the warm-up material on page 47 in the student books? And she said, what warm-up material? I said, well, they're warm-up exercises, they're supplemental. I said, they're on page 430 in the Conductor's Edition. And she wasn't sure what I was talking about. And so, it was one of those things where it never got translated from the teacher tips, from the additional teacher tips. So that looks like, I'll show you what this looks like. Page 47 are in the back of the student books, and they look like this. I don't know if you can see that or not. So like it will say to you, it'll say like, after exercise 35, do number 1. After exercise 42, do number 2. And so all these additional teacher tips are really, really important. And I would really encourage you to take your Conductor's Edition and write all these things in here. And every once in a while, we'll add something. If we come up with a new teaching technique or something, we'll add something. So you might want to go back and just kind of review this as well. So this is really important. And then let's go look at this other page that we were talking about, this new page. And this would be the Habits Beginner Media page. And so you send the students to these pages, and the first thing that you'll see when you scroll down is a list of instruments. And so remember me saying that we were trying to eliminate clicks and them having to find their book and all that stuff. They just go here and click on their instrument. And when they go here, what you're going to see are 2 things. You're going to see a scrolling down menu of all the exercises in the book where the coach is playing the exercise for the student. And the role of the coach is to give them a good model, a good tone. And so they have each exercise. And then they also have this tab, which is really, really important, which are clinic videos. And one of the really cool things about the clinic videos is it gives everybody access to what we call a startup clinic. Sometimes people call it a fast start clinic. And the clinic videos, they're like 12 to 19 videos. And there's several things that are kind of fun. The first one is that the coach tells the student that the instrument they pick was the absolute best instrument. And then it takes them through things like you see this assembly, posture, breathing, holding the instrument. So let's look at what this particular one looks like in terms of a clinic video for euphonium. Can you hear it, Reed?
Hi, my name is Dr. Irving Ray, and I will be your euphonium coach for Habits for a Successful Beginner Band Musician. For starters, you've chosen the most beautiful sounding instrument out of all the woodwind and brass instruments. As proof, if you translate the word euphonium from Greek to English, that's the definition you find: beautiful sounding. And I personally love to play the euphonium for that exact reason. Every time I play for someone who's never heard what a euphonium sounds like, the reaction I always get is, wow, what a gorgeous tone.
And at the end of the first year, all your euphoniums, beginner euphoniums, will sound just like that. So, but the truth is we want good models, right? So they get to hear really great tone. And you noticed here, there are some other things that you have the clinic video, but if you go over here to, let's pick a different tab just so you can see how this works. If you go over here, let's try 132. If you go right here, you'll see a couple of things. You'll see the coach's video, then you'll see the accompaniment track. So if the students want to listen to the coach play the exercise, and then turn the accompaniment track on and play with the accompaniment track, they can do that. So this would be like what a coach's video would look like if it was just the exercise. So you get the idea of how that works. So this new page, like I said, you might want to write it down. It's giamusic.com/habitsbeginnermedia. It's brand new, and it's a really easy way for students to get to their resources quickly and easily. And then the other thing was that additional teacher tip was really, really important. Now, there's some other things on habitsuniversal.com that are under that resources tab. There's a long tone exercise near the bottom that is just absolute gold. There's first concert pieces of music. Like if you want to do a holiday concert, into your first semester, there's some grade 0.5 and grade 1 pieces. We're continuing to add pieces to that. There is supplemental clarinets register going over the break exercises there. There's just a whole list of things under the resources tab, and you might want to take time to actually do that. We also have
Scott, it doesn't show anything.
You're not showing, you don't see any video?
I see nothing but a black screen.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. Let me escape and see what happens. All right. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So let's do a couple of things. Let's go from beginning. And let's go back through here. That's the joy of technology. All right. So just to recap what I was going through, because sorry, we had a black screen. Under the resources tab, you have all these additional things here. And there's the first concert series. There's a first 5 notes chart. There's supplemental solfege exercises. There's the clarinet register break exercises. There are supplemental duets. Here's that long tone exercise down here. And there's a really cool beginner checklist that Jordan Sawyer and Daniel Singer from Florida sent to us that we have been sharing with people. So anyway, check out these resources. All right, Reed, can we see everything now? Awesome. All right, another thing that we have under the videos tab, Dr. Matthew Arau, who's a fantastic person and wrote the book Upbeat, which I absolutely love. He has done some videos for students and for directors. I'll give you just a little taste of this. This is actually a video that he did for teachers after doing a winning habits video for the students. So this will give you an idea of what this looks like.
Hey, I'm Dr. Matthew Arau, and this video is about winning habits. Now, as I shared with the students, they can begin to develop and create habits of success right away. And one that I shared with the students that they can strive for is posture, right? Standing tall or sitting tall while they're playing their instrument. This is a wonderful opportunity at the beginning of the study of music and band to define what are the habits that are important to you. And so what are those expectations?
So that gives you an idea of kind of that video. They're a little short. You can use them as bell work. You can have a particular topic, but they're really cool as well. The accompaniment tracks are also on habitsuniversal.com. And if you want to use them with your students during class, they can use them on the beginner media page as well themselves individually. If you want to use them in class, you can. And I want to just make a statement about this. We started these accompaniment tracks, and literally the number one criteria for us was, were they fun? Like when students played with these accompaniment tracks, would they feel bigger than themselves? Would they just think, wow, this is awesome? So I'll give you just a quick snippet of these accompaniment tracks. Let me go into this. Even when they learned B flat, which is number 14, they learned B flat for the very first time. The accompaniment track that goes with them is supposed to just bring joy to their faces.
Here's the same exercise with a spectacular background accompaniment. Even if students are at the beginning of the learning process and are only playing one note, they can have fun performing with the background accompaniment.
And by the way, if you do that one in class, make them stand up and take a bow, or at least go like this. It's pretty fun to do, right? Also on habitsuniversal.com, under the resources tab, there's a document that Jeff Scott and I worked on called Common Hand Position and Posture Problems. And it's one of those things where you might want to take an instrument a day and just check whatever that thing is. So like for flutes, it's the 3 contact points for holding the flute. Here's one for French horn. I'll let you see this one for French horn. If you happen to have a young horn player, when they put the horn up where the lead pipe is too horizontal and they're reaching to try to get to that lead pipe, what you want to do is ask them to bring their right leg out. And then bringing the right leg out actually allows the lead pipe to have angle down, which is what we prefer. Also, we ask them to take their hand and put it like a handshake, and then bring their thumb in and put the hand at the bottom of the bell. After a while, when their torso gets longer, we then ask them to change the angle of the hand and rest the weight of the bell onto the ledge, and they bring the horn up. But we recommend that they keep it on the leg as long as possible. So if you've ever seen a high school French horn student and they did this with their head, like they're playing and they went, like they lowered their head like this, that's because when they first started on the instrument, the angle of the lead pipe didn't have the correct angle. And it actually causes problems in the upper register and the low register. I'm a horn player, and we call that a reverse pivot, the idea of dropping that head. And so it's really important to get that angle of the lead pipe correct for your horn players, and getting that right leg out is the way you do it. You also have to make sure that when you do this and they get the right leg out, that you give them plenty of bell room in the room between chairs. With that said, check out that Common Hand Position Posture Problems. It's another one of those supplemental things you can check, one instrument a day, and it'll help you, maximize instruction. Now, I think earlier I talked to you about the fact that we started students with just a 1 line of rhythm. And by the way, on your conductor's edition, if you happen to have it with you, if you look at the top of almost every other page in the conductor's edition, there's a little sentence that says, we recommend that you start class by doing rhythm vocabulary. And so it's just, students like systems and processes. And if you do, 3.5 minutes of this, and then 3.5 minutes of this, and 3.5 minutes of this, they like that pacing. And so one of the things to understand is that once we get them to a certain place, we want to then do rhythms followed by rhythms and pitches. And that's where the real epiphany moment happens. And you'll see this is Jeff's class, and he does something called count, clap, and tap, which is the system that I showed you earlier. But like I said, you use whatever counting system you like. And this gives him the opportunity to kind of scan with his eyes. And then we have 4 things that we do at the very beginning. Number 1, we count, clap, and tap it. Number 2, we tizzle it and finger it. So tizzle it and finger it. Third thing, note names and finger it. And then fourth thing, play it. I edited this video so you could see versions 1 and 4. So let's watch the students here.
Everybody count, clap, and tap from line 30. Sit straight, backs off the chairs, heads high.
Watch for a mistake.
3, then sit up. 1 and 2 and line 30 go and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right, caught Sasha on the 1. All right, I think we're gonna leave Sasha messed up like that. Ready?
He says no.
All right, play line 31. 1 and 2 and ready and go and.
So just a quick comment. In the first 23 pages of the conductor's edition, you'll read a sentence that says, if students are achieving at an 80 to 85% success rate, that we move forward, that we think that's good. And like in that recording, you heard there was a mallet player that played a wrong note. There's a tenor saxophone player that played a wrong note. But for beginners, we would consider that to be very good. And we would, we're checking that down up motion with the foot. And we would consider that to be a good example. We can always go back and remediate. We can teach on the spot, but that'll give you kind of an example of how that process would work. One of the things that we're hearing from teachers that has been like a moment for their students is the understanding of keys and key signatures. We're having lots of teachers say, when I use this book, my students really understand keys and key signature recognition. And one of the reasons is because of the way we set up the C pentascale. So if you look at this screen, what you see, these are trumpet clarinet parts. You'll see the B flat concert pentascale followed by the C concert pentascale. Happens to be exercise 45 and 51. And you'll also notice on the additional teacher tips that it will tell you after you do 45 and 51 that we recommend going back in for 2 or 3 weeks. And one of those little 3.5 minute, 4 minute segments, we recommend that you do 45 followed by 51 for several weeks. The reason is we want them to apply key signature. So we literally, when I mean apply, would say like for the B flat, we say, how many is the key of B flat? What's the key signature? How many is this the key of C for you? What's the key signature? How many is this the key of F for you? What's the key signature? How many of you is the key of G for you? So we walk them through that process. Then we go to concert C and ask them the same question. And the C pentascale is not designed to get them to function in the key of C right now, but it is to teach them some fundamental things. So first of all, brass players learn second valve. Trombone players learn some slide positions they didn't know existed. Clarinets learn that side F sharp right after this exercise. And so there's several things that are taught as part of this process. But when I work with Marie students and I ask them to do these 2 exercises, sometimes I'll take out the articulation, sometimes I'll take out the dynamics, but the idea is to get them to apply the key signature. And if they have to do that, and it's almost like a call and response kind of thing in terms of the key signature, we're checking for understanding that way. Then one of the things that we do in the second year of instruction, and by the way, let me go ahead and say this, Habits of a Successful Beginner Band Musician was never designed to be a 1-year book. It was designed to be in an ideal meeting everyday situation, the first year plus the next half year. And depending on your schedule and when you start and things like that, it could easily be a year 1 and a year 2 book. And in year 2, we teach them enharmonic notes using something called the chromatic ladder or the enharmonic ladder. And for beginners, we start just by doing the ones that are across the ladder from each other. And after they start mastering this idea of the notes that are across the ladder from each other, we actually do a call and response game with them. And by the way, I used to do this with my high school students, but it'd be like, and by the way, there's 2 counts of rest between the call and the response. It'd be like F sharp, they'd say G flat. A sharp, they'd say B flat. So that's how that would go. And initially, with beginners, we don't do like F flat or E sharp. We leave that, we just don't do that initially. And then in the book, we have something that's just to check for understanding. It's kind of a cool little thing, but it's called enharmonic lambs. So we have Mary Had a Little Lamb in 2 enharmonic keys. And this is really when students, like the light bulb goes on and they go, wow, it's the same fingering, this is the same, sound, but it's different notes. And that's when they really understand enharmonic notes. But like I said, this would be something that you would do in year 2 of instruction. And it's around, exercise 148 or something like that in the method book. If you use the method, you probably noticed this, but one of the really cool things that we have in the book and that we're getting great feedback from for teachers are the teacher tips and the purpose statements. So every exercise in the book has teacher tips and has a purpose statement. And it really helps to start aligning vocabulary with the students. In other words, they start hearing the same kinds of things from you as the teacher. And when it gets really scary is when they turn around and say something back to you that sounds just like you. That's kind of what we're shooting for, right? So this idea of teacher tips, so like I'll just give an example. If you happen to use triggered trombones, and we're fortunate in our system that our students have triggered trombones, it says remind the trombones in measure 7 that they have to play this C as trigger 1 because it's followed by a B flat. So every exercise has these teacher tips, and it'll tell you why the exercise is there. But I wanted to show you this one in particular because it shows something that's really important in terms of the supplemental process with clarinets. So clarinets do not have to play over the break until exercise 74 in the book. But we have something called clarinets only pages. The clarinets only pages are on page 16A and 16B of the method book. And after exercise 27, we send them to the clarinets only pages. And the clarinets only pages literally starts with exercise A here. And we want you to take literally an entire week on number 1. So you're going to go C, and then you're going to go B flat. You're going to make sure they're covering those holes. You're going to check that 4th, finger, that ring finger on the right hand, make sure they're covering the holes, that they're getting really good sound. The shallow register, you're going to check and make sure that thumb is not too far forward, that the thumb rest is right above the cuticle. And you're just really working on a great sound, the shallow register. And one way you can do this is, if students come in the room, you can have for all the students, get your devices out with the exception of clarinets, go to musictheory.net, work on key signatures, clarinets, get your instruments out. Everybody else get, rhythm chart number 4 and have it on your stand. And so literally you can work with the clarinets for 3.5, 4 minutes. And then as soon as the clarinets are done with exercise A, then you have everybody get that rhythm chart out and you're off to the races. But one of the things you'll notice here is, after they do a week on exercise A and a week on exercise B and a week on exercise C, if you look, A and E are the same exercise just with the register key, and B and F are the same exercise just with the register key. And we find that if you get exercises A, B, C, and D sounding really good with a great tone, using lots of air, and they're fundamentally covering the whole, doing all the things that you want them to do. When they get to E, and by the way, they're not next to each other on the student page. I just made them this way for the screen, that they'll realize that all they have to do is engage that register key, right? And if they just engage the register key, then it's the same exercise. And since we've been doing a week on A and then a week on B, that really works for the clarinet students. And what we find is that many times they're playing over the break by about exercise 50 in the book, but they don't have to play over it until exercise 74. So what we do is we keep them on the 16B page, and then we send them to habitsuniversal.com. There's a supplemental clarinet register break exercises, and we send them to that page to start working on those supplemental register break exercises. All right, so let's talk about a couple other things. We have some videos and stuff. So like I just give an example. This is one on swabbing, just to kind of give you an idea of some of the other videos, because we're talking about supplemental things, if my technology will work. There it is. All right, here we go. And I'll just play a little bit of this so you can get the idea.
One important aspect of maintaining your saxophone involves keeping water out of your instrument during and after playing. When we play, condensation builds up in our instrument, which leads to water in our keys and throughout the body.
So the idea, like for instance, when he does that, he puts the saxophone back on the neck strap to show them how that technique would work. And so they're just really, really good videos to show students, all those clinic videos. And we were just talking about the clarinets going over the break. We also have something there at the very end of each instrument called pro tips. And pro tips do various things, and you'll see in the additional teacher tips, like I used the example earlier to send the trombones after number 19 to the pro tip titled slurring. This is one for clarinet going over the break. And what Cecilia's doing is she's doing 2-3 pinky, 2-3 pinky, and she's just using these two fingers. And they've already learned before this to do the finger roll, going from G to A for clarinets. And so this is something that you can implement. And this usually happens in year 2. Let's watch this video, pro tip video.
Going over the break is a transition between the low range into the middle range of the clarinet. This is one of the most challenging techniques to master on the clarinet. Using resonance fingering can help maintain smooth transition. The specific fingerings may vary from clarinet to clarinet, depending on the intonation of each instrument. I like to use these fingerings on mine. Practicing a trill exercise between the notes A and B will improve your ability to smoothly play over the break.
So this exercise is on one of the supplemental clarinet register break exercises. It just does not include the 16th notes. So it's a little bit slower, but that'll give you kind of an idea. And we do teach right hand down in the book itself. I won't go through, I'll give you the short versions of these. For those of you who start oboist, and I realize that everybody doesn't, but for those of you who start oboist, we have a video for the F dilemma on oboe, which is the 3 different fingerings for F. And so, for instance, if in the book,
Pro tip.
let me just show you this. In the book, for the first third of the oboe book, we show you the fingerings, right F, left F, and forked F. And in this example, for instance, if you look at the next to last measure, because this F is followed by an E flat, you have to finger it either forked or left. You can't finger it with the right F. And there's also in the conductor's edition on page 22 and 23 of the conductor's edition, an explanation of how we've set up the oboe book and why these fingerings are there. So that's something that you can look at. The other thing that we address in the book, if you happen to start bassoonist, is flicking or venting on bassoon. And flicking, it refers to A, B flat, B, C, and D at the top of the staff. And the technique is there. The universal sign for flicking is the degree sign. And so we, cover that as well. And so in the additional teacher tips, it will tell you, what exercise to send your bassoons to look at this idea of flicking or venting. And then not to leave the trombones out, let's look at the video that I told you earlier about slurring. And by the way, this is a developmentally appropriate language for this concept. It's a little bit more extensive than what we have here, but there's a reason why we do it this way.
Hi, here's a pro tip for all you trombone players. Today we're going to talk about a natural lip slur versus a lightly tongued lip slur. Those are the 2 main types of slurs that we play on the trombone. So first, when we play a natural lip slur, that typically means that you are doing a lip slur from 2 or more notes in the same position. And when we do those kinds of lip slurs, we only use our embouchure and our air with a natural lip slur, sort of like this. When I change notes, all I did was change the speed of my air. Faster air to go up, and then slower, relaxed air to go down. Now, when we play a lightly tongued lip slur, those are the slurs we will use when we change positions to play slurred notes. Unlike the other instruments, if we didn't lightly tongue them, it would come out like a gliss, sounding... and it doesn't sound very clean. So what we have to do is lightly tongue the second note to create the illusion of an actual slur. And And our goal is to make it as smooth as we can, so it still sounds like a natural slur, but actually it's a lightly tongued lip slur.
All right, so that's the next. I have to tell you real quick, that's a former student of mine, Katie Thigpen, who plays in the Army Herald Trumpets, plays the tenor part. So anyway, I smile when I see that video. Also, the percussion book is put together. Kevin Boyle did an amazing job on the percussion book. We have, a left and a right page. The left page is the mallet page. The right page is what we call the battery page. The stickings are there for everything. And I'll encourage you to not only have your students do this, but actually to have you as the teacher go through and watch the percussion videos. There's, videos on, timpani, bass drum, triangle, tambourine, all the rudiments. And so I encourage you to watch those videos. This is one of the initial percussion videos. I'll let you see this about the 4 basic strokes.
As soon as you can hold your drumsticks properly, you should begin to practice the 4 basic strokes. These strokes can be found at the top of page 2G in your book. These strokes are foundational to everything else you will play in percussion. So let's get started. The rebound stroke is the most common and should be learned first before moving to the other strokes. Strike the drum and the stick should rebound back to its starting point like dribbling a basketball. You should not have to lift the stick back to the starting position. You should practice this stroke at all dynamic levels. The controlled stroke is used when a softer note follows a louder note. Strike the drum at the louder volume and stop the stick lower so you can play the softer notes properly. This stroke is most common in accent tap exercises as the accented note.
So that'll give you an idea. There's a whole curriculum, video-wise and things that are in the book with regard to percussion. Kevin is a middle school teacher, by the way, and did a wonderful job on the percussion curriculum. I'll just go through some of these other things really quickly. I know we're getting close to our time finishing up, and I want to give you time to ask questions. So I'll go through some of these things kind of quickly. These are those supplemental warm-up pages that I told you earlier about on page 47. And on the additional teacher tips, it tells you when to jump to the supplemental warm-up exercises and how they're sequenced. The next thing I wanted to indicate to you is that we have left and right indicators for woodwinds in the instrument, in the books, in the method book. So you'll see that. You'll also see something that looks like a V shape here. And the V shape here in your conductor's edition tells you when that alternate F sharp, in this case, is being used. And it's in the student book and the conductor's edition as well. I also wanted to mention to you that new for this year, we have a new string-based book and a new electric-based book. And I'll tell you that, you can encourage your, music stores to contact GIA, and the electric-based book has just come off press. It is available and you can get it right now, but wanted to let you know that those are available. And then the other thing I wanted to just mention to you is this. We have 3 warm-up sequences in the book. The first one is around exercise number 104. It's called Basic Daily Warm-Ups. Then we have another one in the middle. It's called Intermediate Daily Warm-Ups. And we have a third one at the end called Advanced Daily Warm-Ups. And I want to encourage you to explore the idea that maybe even after exercise 60, even though the basic daily warm-up is not till like 104, starting at around number 60, you can start experimenting with the basic daily warm-up page with your students. And all the exercises on that page are remediated before you get to 104. So the students would have covered it as you move to that page. So you can start addressing that. And then, of course, we have, other things in the book throughout, other technical things in the book. That's another one of the things that kind of makes this book unique, is throughout you have, flexibility studies and scale studies and articulation studies and dynamic exercises and technical studies and things like that. All right, so I know we're getting near the end of our time, so I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen. And Reet, is there anything on the chat that we need to cover? Or if somebody wants to ask a question, I can't see everyone on the screen, so you'd want to go to your reactions button and raise your hand and feel free to ask a question. Reet, I'm going to start with you. Anything on the chat that we need to discuss?
I had a question about that. I think a lot of people had used on habitsuniversal.com just the list of all the accompaniments, and they were looking for the list of the accompaniments. And I said that because we have the video and the accompaniment under it, that connects the two. I said, I find that kids have better tone and better understanding of their sound if they can play along with the model, or like listen to the model, then they can play to the accompaniments. And that's kind of why the reason we put those two together. But they could still access the Habits Universal and get the videos.
Yeah. So let me show you both of those real quick, just so I'll do it this way if I can. Actually, I can't, but I can this way. So give me just a second. All right. So if I go to habitsuniversal.com, and I go to the top of the page, the accompaniment tracks are here, and they're in groups of 50. So like if you literally went here and clicked on it, you would have the access to those. And then the videos themselves, you have two choices here. You have the clinic videos, and this is for the teacher, and you have the video exercises, which is every individual. So the teacher still has access to everything they had access to before. And by the way, the teacher has access to all the videos. And that's also where we have the Habits of Success videos by Matthew Arau as well. So to answer your question, we have the accompaniment tracks here, and we have all the videos here on habitsuniversal.com. All right, any other questions?
They're not chatty people.
Okay, well, let me just say a couple of things. So first of all, I want to give you my email address. So my email address is scottr@giamusic.com. So SCOTTR@giamusic.com. And at any time during the year, if you have any question, we can set up a Zoom call and just ask me a question about anything in the method book, and I'll be glad to walk you through it and answer any questions that you might have. We really do want to build a relationship with you guys, so don't ever hesitate to reach out. And the other thing I wanted to just say is this: we're in the music business and the people business, and part of the Habit series is this idea of how we connect with students. You must connect before you can correct, or they don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. So I know that some of you are starting school tomorrow. I see some people on the screen that I know are starting school tomorrow. And don't ever lose sight of your why. The fact that we have the ability to make a difference in the life of a young person each and every day. You are making a significant difference in the life of young people. And thank you for what you do each and every day for young people to help them be the absolute best versions of themselves. Thank you guys so much.
Scott,
Yep.
Someone asked, can they have a video of this webinar?
Yes. So what I'm going to do, Amanda, make sure I answer that question that I just saw pop up. So yes, we will record this. If you want to reach out to me at scottr@giamusic.com, I'll be glad to send you a copy of this video. And Amanda asked if there was going to be a strings version. We are working on a Habits beginner string version that will be out next school year. It'll actually be released in April. And we're really, really excited about it. And it will have some of the same type things. It will have video coaches for every exercise in the book. It'll have clinic videos and other things like that too. So yeah, so that answers that question. All right. Anybody else? All right. Well, listen, thank you guys so much. Don't ever hesitate to reach out. Have a fantastic week, everyone. Take care. See you tomorrow, Mary.